Smokey and the Bandit.
Yes, he called. We just wrapped Sybil. I was sort of dragging myself around in some...
Sally.
Yeah.
Since you said your best on-screen kiss was with James Garner in Murphy's Romance.
The worst kiss I ever had. After 45 years, Sally Field finally reveals the shocking truth about Smokey and the Bandit. From Bert Reynolds' secret drug use to the terrible script she almost rejected, Field exposes what really happened on the set of the 1977 classic. But the most surprising revelation? Why she refused to speak to Reynolds for the last 30 years of his life. Let's get into the details. Sally Field was born on November 6, 1946, in Pasadena, California. Her childhood was shaped by two very different worlds. Her mother, Margaret Field, was an actress working with Paramount Pictures, bringing the glitz and glam of Hollywood into Sally's early life. Her father, Richard Dryden Field, was an Army officer, adding strict discipline and structure. This mix of glamour and order shaped Sally into someone resilient and strong. When Sally was only 4 years old, her parents got divorced. It was a painful event that stayed with her throughout her life. A few years later, in 1952, her mother married Jock Mahoney, a stuntman and actor. But instead of bringing happiness, this marriage added more darkness to Sally's life. Years later, in her 2018 memoir, In Pieces, Sally revealed the terrible truth that Mahoney took advantage of her during her teenage years. She carried this secret for decades, and it shaped the way she saw the world and herself. Despite the pain at home, Sally found an escape. She spent a lot of time on film sets with her mother, watching the magic of Hollywood come to life. This sparked a passion in her for acting and storytelling. At school, Sally began to use acting as a way to express herself and escape from her troubled home life. While she was at Portola Middle School and later Birmingham High School in Van Nuys, she discovered she had a natural talent for performing. Acting became more than just something she enjoyed. It was her way to cope with everything happening in her life. One day, when Sally was 17, she went to a high school party that changed her life. A talent agent noticed her and suggested she audition for an acting workshop at Columbia Studios. This small suggestion ended up being the start of something much bigger. Sally joined the workshop and worked hard for 8 weeks, learning how to act alongside other young talents. It was a tough program, but it helped her grow. During this time, she impressed casting director Marcia Levy, who was looking for fresh faces for a new TV series. Sally stood out because of her natural charm and the emotional depth she brought to her performances. Sally's first big role came in 1965 when she was cast as the lead in Gidget. This TV show followed the life of Frances Gidget Lawrence, a teenage surfer girl in Southern California. Sally was just 18 years old, but she beat 75 other actresses to get the role. Her performance was full of life, making Gidget relatable and lovable, especially for teenage viewers. The show premiered on September 1965, and while it was fun and fresh, it ended after just one season, with the last episode airing on April 1966. Many thought this would end Sally's career before it really began, but something surprising happened. The reruns of Gidget became a hit during the summer, especially with teenage audiences. This unexpected success made Sally a star and proved that she could truly connect with people. After Gidget, ABC wanted to find another project for Sally. That's how she ended up starring in The Flying Nun. This unusual show, which premiered on September 7, 1967, cast Sally as Sister Bertrille, a young nun who could fly because of her light weight and the large cornet she wore. The idea was strange, but Sally brought warmth and charm to the role, making Sister Bertrille a character audiences loved. The show ran for 3 seasons, with a total of 82 episodes, and became a cultural hit. But behind the scenes, Sally was struggling. She later admitted she didn't enjoy working on The Flying Nun. In fact, She said she hated it. In the early 1970s, when she was in her mid-20s, she desperately wanted to play mature and complex characters. But Hollywood kept offering her the same sweet, innocent roles, which frustrated her deeply. In 1972, Field decided to take a big risk by appearing topless in the film Stay Hungry. This shocked her fans and many people in the industry. She hoped the move would prove she could play different kinds of roles, but it didn't work out the way she wanted. The film wasn't widely released and didn't change how people saw her. Feeling stuck, Field made an even riskier decision. For nearly 3 years, from 1973 to 1976, she refused to accept any sitcom roles. This could have ended her career, but she was determined to break away from her squeaky clean image. During this time, Field joined the Actors Studio in Los Angeles, where she studied under the legendary teacher Lee Strasberg. She threw herself into her training, spending long days working on her craft and going to auditions. She was so frustrated with her career that she even thought about giving up acting. In a 1976 interview, she said, "I was ready to work as a waitress or do anything else. I just couldn't stand being trapped in that sugary sweet image forever." Her determination finally paid off in 1976, but the struggle left a mark on her. In her 2018 memoir, In Pieces, Field revealed that during this time she battled depression and an eating disorder. The pressure to reinvent herself was overwhelming, but she refused to give up. One of the pivotal moments came with her role in Stay Hungry. Directed by Bob Rafelson, the film was a comedy drama about bodybuilding. Field played Mary Tate, a gym receptionist who falls for a wealthy man named Craig Blake, played by Jeff Bridges. This role was shocking for audiences because it included a scene where Field appeared partially nude. She later admitted she was terrified to take the role because of the nudity, saying, "I had never done anything like that before, and I wasn't sure I could." To prepare, she went on a strict diet and exercise plan, losing 10 pounds to look the part. The film also introduced Arnold Schwarzenegger in his first major acting role. He played a bodybuilder named Joe Santo, and Field later said she admired his dedication despite his inexperience. Stay Hungry was released in April 1976, but it wasn't a big box office success, earning only $5 million. However, the film gained a cult following over time, and critics praised Field's performance. Roger Ebert even called her touching and vulnerable. The film also earned Schwarzenegger a Golden Globe for New Star of the Year, marking the start of his acting career. Later that same year, Field landed her most career-defining role in the TV miniseries Sybil. The story, based on a true account, followed a woman with dissociative identity disorder caused by severe childhood abuse. This role was incredibly demanding because Field had to play not just Sybil, but 13 distinct personalities. Each one had its own voice, mannerisms, and emotional depth. To prepare, Field spent 6 months researching the disorder, working with a dialect coach, and observing patients in psychiatric wards. She took the role very seriously, knowing it was her chance to prove herself as a serious actress. The filming of Sybil was intense. It lasted 12 weeks, with Field often working 16-hour days. In one emotional scene, she had to reenact a traumatic memory where Sybil was tied to a table. The scene was so physically demanding that Field dislocated her shoulder but insisted on finishing the take. She poured everything she had into the role, determined to give her best performance. When Sybil aired on NBC in November 1976, it was a huge success. Over 92 million people watched it, nearly half of the U.S. population at the time. Critics praised Field's performance, calling it groundbreaking. She won her first Emmy Award for Outstanding Lead Actress, and in her emotional acceptance speech, she said, "This means more to me than I can possibly say. It validates everything I've been working towards for the past decade." The success of Sybil changed Field's career forever. She went from being seen as a lightweight TV actress to a serious and talented performer. Reflecting on this breakthrough, Field said, "It was as if I had been invisible before, and suddenly people could see me." In 1977, Sally Field's career took a surprising turn when she was cast in Smokey and the Bandit. Before this, Sally was mainly known for her roles in TV shows like Gidget and The Flying Nun. She wasn't someone people thought of for action movies. But Bert Reynolds, who was already a big star, insisted she should play the part. The studio didn't agree at first. They wanted a glamorous actress. But Bert convinced them she was perfect for the role. Filming began on May 23, 1977, in Georgia. The budget was small, just $4.3 million, and the summer heat was intense, often hitting 35 degrees Celsius. This made the car chase scenes especially difficult to shoot. Bert was 41 and at the peak of his career, while Sally, at 30, was eager to leave her TV image behind and prove herself in movies. Despite the challenges, the set had a fun and playful vibe because Bert loved pulling practical jokes on everyone. The movie premiered on May 27, 1977, and became an unexpected hit, making over $126 million at the box office. It was so successful that it led to 2 sequels. For Sally, it was a major breakthrough, helping her move from television to film. For Bert and Sally, it was also the beginning of a personal relationship that would become a big part of both their lives. From the start, Sally and Bert had undeniable chemistry. Sally later wrote in her memoir, In Pieces, that their connection was immediate. She said, "We had known each other about 3 days, 4 days at that point, but it felt like 4 years." Their instant bond showed on screen and made their characters' relationship feel real, which played a big role in the film's success. Their attraction quickly grew into a real-life romance. Sally was drawn to Bert's charm and confidence. Bert, 11 years older than Sally, was known for his rugged good looks and magnetic personality. They would often spend time together between takes, and the crew noticed how strong their connection was. Jerry Reed, Bert's co-star, once said, "You could cut the tension with a knife. It was like watching 2 teenagers in love." Even though their relationship started with excitement and passion, problems appeared early on. Bert was used to being the center of attention, and he struggled when Sally started getting more recognition. During one event promoting the movie, fans asked for Sally's autograph more than his, and Bert was visibly upset. This was a small glimpse of the challenges they would face as their relationship went on. Sally later described it as passionate but also confusing and difficult. She said there was love and care, but there were also many problems. One of the biggest issues was Bert's controlling behavior. In her memoir, she wrote, "From the moment I walked through the door, it was a way to control me." Bert often tried to dictate her career choices and personal decisions, which caused a lot of tension. Moving on, Sally Field's life changed forever when she starred in Norma Rae in 1979. The part wasn't meant for her at first. Big stars like Jane Fonda had been considered. But when Sally got the chance, she gave it her all. To prepare, she worked in a real textile mill in Alabama for weeks. She wanted to understand what life was like for working-class women. On set, she was fearless. She even did her own stunts, including the famous scene where she stands on a table holding a Union sign. That scene was filmed in a noisy, hot mill, and Sally had to do it again and again until it was perfect. The movie became a hit, earning $22 million, which was a lot back then. Critics loved Sally's performance. They said she made her character tough but also vulnerable, which felt very real. Sally won several big awards for her work, and in 1980, she won her first Oscar for Best Actress. During her speech, she thanked the real-life woman her character was based on and the movie's director. This moment proved to everyone that Sally was more than just a TV star. She could handle deep, dramatic roles. That same year, Norma Rae was shown at the Cannes Film Festival in France. Sally was excited, but also nervous. She wasn't used to being around big names like Francis Ford Coppola, who was there with Apocalypse Now. Sally even made some funny mistakes, like packing the wrong clothes for the cool weather. She had to wrap herself in her hotel's blanket to stay warm. When her movie played at the festival, Sally sat in the theater feeling terrified. At first, there was silence when the movie ended, and she thought the audience hated it. But then, they stood up and clapped for 10 minutes. Sally was overwhelmed. A few days later, she won the Best Actress award at Cannes. It was a huge moment, showing the world how talented she was. While her career was taking off, her relationship with Bert Reynolds started falling apart. They had been dating since 1976, but Bert didn't seem happy about Sally's success. At first, he supported her, but as she started winning awards and getting more attention, he became distant and jealous. When she told him about going to Cannes, he made a rude comment, saying she wouldn't win anything. Later, as more awards came her way, Bert's behavior got worse. He would sulk or say mean things, and Sally could feel their connection fading. Things got really bad before the Oscars in 1980. Sally was nominated for Best Actress, but Bert refused to go with her. He even told a magazine that Hollywood didn't care about real acting, which felt like a dig at her. Sally was hurt, but didn't let it stop her. Her friends, David and Judy Steinberg, offered to take her to the ceremony. They made the night fun by picking her up in a limo with champagne. On the red carpet, Sally smiled and told reporters that Bert had a prior commitment. That night, Sally won the Oscar. She looked so happy on stage, thanking the people who helped her with the movie. She didn't mention Bert at all. His absence showed how much their relationship had changed. Even though they stayed together for a couple more years, things were never the same. Sally's success had created a gap between them that couldn't be fixed. Meanwhile, Sally Field's career hit a big milestone when she won her second Oscar for Places in the Heart in 1984. This happened just 5 years after her first Oscar for Norma Rae in 1979. It proved she was one of the best actresses in Hollywood. In the movie, Sally played Edna Spaulding, a widow in 1935 Texas, trying to save her farm and take care of her family during the Great Depression. At first, Sally didn't want the role. She turned it down 3 times because she thought it was too much like her character in Norma Rae. But the director, Robert Benton, wouldn't give up. He even went to her house and spent hours convincing her to take the part. Sally prepared by living with a family in Texas. She learned how to pick cotton, milk cows, and even kill chickens. Her hard work paid off, and everyone loved her performance. Her Oscar speech became famous too. Sally said, "I can't deny the fact that you like me right now. You like me." People often misquote it as, "You like me. You really like me." This line was her way of responding to critics who thought her first Oscar win was just luck. The moment became iconic and is still talked about today. After this, Sally showed she could do all kinds of roles. She starred in Steel Magnolias in 1989 and Mrs. Doubtfire in 1993, 2 very different movies. In Steel Magnolias, she played Malin, a mother dealing with the loss of her daughter, Shelby. Her funeral scene was so emotional that many people see it as one of her best moments on screen. The movie had a famous cast, including Dolly Parton and Julia Roberts, and made a lot of money. What's interesting is Sally wasn't the first choice for the role. Meg Ryan and Deborah Winger were offered it first, but they said no. In Mrs. Doubtfire, Sally acted alongside Robin Williams in a comedy about a dad pretending to be a nanny to see his kids. Sally played Miranda, the mom. At first, she didn't want the part because she thought Robin's humor would overshadow her. But the director promised she could improvise with him, and that made her say yes. One funny moment in the movie happened by accident. She stepped on Robin's fake nose, and it got stuck to her shoe. The movie was a huge hit, making over $441 million. As Sally got older, she took on more mature roles. In Forrest Gump, 1994, she played Tom Hanks's mom, Mrs. Gump. Sally was only 10 years older than Tom in real life, but with makeup and costumes, she made the role believable. It took hours in the makeup chair to age her for certain scenes. Her work was so good, she was nominated for a Screen Actors Guild Award. In 2000, Sally starred in Where the Heart Is with Natalie Portman. This movie showed Sally taking on motherly roles for a younger generation of actors. Behind the scenes, she became a mentor to Natalie, sharing advice about being in the spotlight. Then, in 2002, Sally surprised everyone by doing Broadway. She starred in The Goat, or Who is Sylvia? A play with dark and shocking themes. People loved her performance, and it proved she could do more than just movies and TV. Sally didn't slow down in the 2000s. Sally Field became famous again with her role as Nora Walker in the TV show Brothers and Sisters. The show started on September 24, 2006, but at first, the character of Nora was played by Betty Buckley. The producers decided they needed something different and gave the role to Sally. This turned out to be a great choice because she brought Nora to life in a way that made people love the character. Nora was a widow who found out her husband had been unfaithful. On top of that, she had to handle her grown-up children's problems. The show ran for 5 seasons with 109 episodes, and it let Sally show how talented she is. She made Nora's story about grief, self-discovery, and growth feel very real. In 2007, Sally won an Emmy for her performance. It was on September 16th at the 59th Primetime Emmy Awards. Winning was special because it had been 30 years since she last won an Emmy for Sybil. But the moment became even more famous because of her speech. She spoke out against war, saying, "If the mothers ruled the world, there would be no goddamn wars in the first place." Fox, the TV network airing the show, cut her off after the word God and didn't return to her speech. This led to a big debate about free speech and whether it's okay to make political statements during award shows. Another big moment in Sally's career was when she played Mary Todd Lincoln in the movie Lincoln in 2012. Getting this role wasn't easy. Steven Spielberg had thought of her for the role as early as 2005. But the movie went through many changes. Sally gained 25 pounds to look more like Mary Todd Lincoln and studied the First Lady's life deeply. She asked Spielberg to let her audition and performed a scene with Tommy Lee Jones, who was also in the film. The big moment came when she and Day-Lewis met in character. They spent hours improvising as Abraham and Mary Todd Lincoln. This convinced Spielberg and Day-Lewis that she was perfect for the part. In Lincoln, Sally played Mary Todd as a complicated woman. Very smart, but struggling with emotional pain. Mary was grieving the loss of her children while supporting her husband during the Civil War. The film came out on November 9, 2012, and Sally's performance was widely praised. She was nominated for major awards like the Academy Award and the Golden Globe. But even though she didn't win, people saw this as one of her best roles ever. In 2023, Sally was honored in a special way. She was inducted into the American Academy of Arts and Sciences, which is one of the oldest and most respected organizations in the United States. Sally Field recently shared surprising details about Smokey and the Bandit. In a 2022 interview, she said her on-screen kiss with Bert Reynolds was the worst she ever had. She didn't hold back, saying it was just not something he did very well, and even joked about the drooling. This shocked fans, especially since their chemistry on screen looked so perfect. Field wasn't excited about the movie at first. In 2018, she admitted that when she read the script, she thought it was terrible. Bert Reynolds agreed the script wasn't great, but he convinced her to join by saying they could make it work through improvisation. This means a lot of what fans loved about the movie came from their own creativity on set, not the script itself. What's funny is why Reynolds wanted Field in the movie. He said he loved her in an old sitcom called Gidget. Field was confused and thought, really, Gidget? That's why he wants me? Even though it seemed random, it worked out. Smokey and the Bandit became a huge hit, making $126 million in the U.S. It also had 2 sequels and became one of the most loved movies of the 1970s. But while the movie seemed fun and carefree, Field and Reynolds' real relationship was much more complicated. In her memoir, Field said their connection was instant and intense. She described the first 4 days on set as feeling like 4 years because of how quickly their bond grew. But things weren't perfect. Reynolds was 41 at the time, and Field, who was 30, noticed he was using a lot of drugs. He took pills like Percodan and Valium, and even had strange injections in his chest. Field cared about Reynolds and wanted to help. She secretly arranged for him to see a doctor at the Miami Heart Institute. Although his health report came back positive, she urged him to get help for stress and anxiety. Reynolds dismissed her efforts, calling them self-delusional poppycock. Their relationship was full of contradictions. Field described it as a perfect match of flaws. Despite the tumultuous nature of their relationship, Reynolds later expressed deep regret over how he treated Field. In a 2015 interview with Vanity Fair, he called her the love of my life and lamented, "I miss her terribly. I don't know why I was so stupid." Tragically, Field revealed that she and Reynolds didn't speak for the last 30 years of his life. Apart from this relationship, Sally Field married 2 times. Her first marriage started as a high school love story. She married Stephen Craig on September 16, 1968, in Las Vegas. Sally was 21, and Stephen was 23. They went to Jamaica for their honeymoon, full of hope for their future. But things didn't go as planned, and the marriage turned out to be both exciting and challenging. During their 7 years together, they had 2 sons. Peter was born on November 10, 1969, and Eli came on May 25, 1972. Both grew up to follow their mom into the entertainment world. Peter became a famous screenwriter, working on movies like Top Gun, Maverick, and The Batman. Eli became a director and made the cult comedy Tucker and Dale vs. Evil. Even with happy moments as parents, Sally and Stephen's relationship started falling apart. Sally later admitted she married Stephen for the wrong reasons. She was scared of losing him and wanted her life to feel stable. Things got even harder when Stephen turned away from Hollywood and started living a hippie lifestyle. Their sons ended up splitting time between Sally's home in Brentwood and Stephen's commune, which gave them very different experiences growing up. The couple separated in 1973, but the divorce wasn't finalized until August 1st, 1975. Even after the divorce, Stephen stayed involved in his sons' lives. When Peter dropped out of high school, Stephen stepped in, giving him a tough construction job in Oregon to help him get back on track. This showed how complicated, but still connected, their family remained. Sally's second marriage came years later. On December 15, 1984, she married film producer Alan Greisman. This happened after her high-profile relationship with Bert Reynolds. Sally was looking for a fresh start, and Alan seemed like the stability she needed. He was known for producing hit movies like Fletch and The Bucket List. They had a son, Samuel, on December 2, 1987. Sally was 41, and becoming a mom again made her so happy. Samuel grew up to be creative, just like his parents, and became a writer and director. But despite her hopes for a lasting marriage, this relationship also had its struggles. Sally once joked, "I'm not very good at marriage," hinting at the challenges she faced. Their busy careers and the pressures of family life likely caused distance between them. After nearly 10 years together, Sally and Alan divorced on June 24, 1994. Sally focused on being a single mom to Samuel while continuing her acting career, showing her strength and dedication to her family. Later in life, Sally became known for something bigger than acting: her activism. She passionately supported LGBTQ+ rights, especially after her son Sam came out as gay at 19. Sally stood by him completely, saying, "Sam has always been Sam, this amazing human." Her love for him turned into a strong commitment to fighting for equality for everyone. She worked hard to bring attention to the lack of legal protections for LGBTQ+ people in many states. In 2012, she was honored with the Ally for Equity Award by the Human Rights Campaign. Sam gave her the award and said how much her support meant to him, especially when he came out. Sally also spoke out for women's rights and against gender inequality in Hollywood. Her famous 2007 Emmy speech, where she said, "If mothers ruled the world, there would be no goddamn wars," showed her boldness in standing up for what she believed. She didn't stop there. Sally also cared about the environment and joined protests and campaigns. In 2017, she was even arrested while fighting against healthcare rollbacks that would hurt people with pre-existing conditions.